Welcome to the Tomsic Analysis with David Tomsic, a revolution in news and entertainment.
Welcome to part 2 of our 3-part series entitled Religion and Politics, Evangelicalism's Influence on American Politics. I'm David Tomsic. Now, if you watched my first video, and if you haven't seen that, please go back and watch part 1 to get some groundwork for part 2. Basically, in part 1, I did give some of my opinion on some of the problems I've seen and some of the issues we've had with this new role of evangelical Christians involved in politics. A lot of people probably looked at me and said, well, you consider yourselves a Christian. I am a Christian. I consider myself a Christian. I might even lean into the evangelical world because I am a full believer, okay? I believe in the Bible as the Word of God completely. Now, when it gets into the politics of it, I have some issues, and I've stated some of those in part 1. Now, I want to say I'm doing this out of love. All of you who are friends of mine that are watching this that are evangelicals, or consider yourself that, don't take offense, please. I apologize if you have been offended in any way. This is not intended to target people or pastors or even churches to a degree. I did mention my Presbyterian church the last video, and of course I was picking on the whole organization, and I think that was fitting for what I was trying to explain. But right now we're in the midst of an election. There's 8 days, just 8, before the next presidential election. And this particular election has been divisive, more so than I've ever seen it. And my time up at the Washington County, Pennsylvania Agricultural Fair proved that to me, and some people kind of didn't like what I had to say, but there was an aggressiveness in this case on the part of the Republican booth, and should I say a lot of the people visiting that booth against the Democrats was disturbing to me. I can be a tough guy, believe me. I'm a martial artist, yeah, I'm a Second Amendment guy. There's a lot of things you can say about me that I'm not going to back down to many people for just about anything. In this case, I was, up in arms about this because as a political atheist, and I've mentioned this in the past, I believe in the fairness and honesty of the American system as far as the people are concerned. The system itself's dead. It's dead, it's corrupt, it's not fixable. Right off the bat, you kind of know where I'm coming from there if you've never watched any of my videos. But people have to learn to be civil. But that day is gone. That ship has sailed. The horse has left the barn. Okay? So in this part, I'm going to talk a little bit about some history and some of the things that have led to where we're at and some of the rhetoric we now hear from Christian evangelical pastors. Again, I'm disappointed in this as well, just as disappointed as I was at the fairgrounds with the arrogance that went on there. So right off the bat, what we're looking at is ideology. And it goes beyond Scripture and beyond the Bible. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. First of all, let me talk a little bit about the definitions of some of the terms you may hear. Christian nationalism, evangelicalism, and there's a few others. Let's stick with those two, and I just went to Google here and Googled it. Don't go down off the reservation because it's Google. Let's just see what the average person would find if they looked up these definitions. Christian nationalism suggests that real Americans are Christians who hold a particular set of fundamental religious beliefs that often align with certain conservative political positions. Evangelicalism, on the other hand, is a cultural identity for many who see the United States as the center of their worship. Okay, now I know not everybody will agree with those definitions, but honestly, this is close to being really true. We see a Christian nationalist movement with mostly fundamental evangelical Christians involved in it. Donald Trump was the latest to pretty much go after this vote. I think they vote 80% Republican almost all the time. It's 80% basically stay with the Republican right-wing agenda. So this is a very solid voting bloc for Republicans. And of course, Donald Trump was one of the first people that I've really seen that really took advantage of this in a big way. Now, I look at it very negatively there because I think that's what him and his crew were doing, taking advantage of it. And sadly, this has led to some of the issues that I've seen across this country and even locally here, starting with the Washington County Agricultural Fair. You don't have to be a Christian or evangelical to have these beliefs that Donald Trump has portrayed, for instance. Now, this is not a total bomb on Donald Trump. It just so happens that this particular topic relates to him and him solely. There's nobody that's going to swear on a Bible that Kamala Harris is anywhere near evangelical or going to, receive many evangelical votes. Okay, so we're going to leave her out of this and just go by where we're at now, because you see, a lot of folks that I know will vote for a Republican or a right-wing person no matter what they do. And there's some historical documentation to that. Now, before I go down that, I want to let you know we are a channel that's growing. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. The likes help us with the algorithm. Sharing gets the word out. And subscribe just shows your support for our channel. I appreciate for you if you can do that. Remember, we do have our live stream this Thursday at 8 p.m. It's called Live Stream Thursday. Please be there and be ready to chat with me. And I'm announcing right now that we will have a election night live stream, and that's going to be at 7 p.m. election evening. I'm going to try to stay on as long as I can and go through and see what we can find out on what states go to who, and actually maybe, if we're lucky enough, who wins the presidential election. So stay tuned on next Tuesday, November 5th, for that. Okay, having said that, evangelicalism really didn't exist for a long time. And Christian nationalism really was non-existent in its own right until 1976, when Jimmy Carter, he was a Christian. He was a born-again Christian, announced that he was, and he pretty much had some Baptist views, and they were considered liberal Baptist views for racial equality, economic disparity, and human rights concerns. Now, when he ran the second time, he lost to Ronald Reagan. Now, being that Jimmy Carter was a Christian, he didn't get the number of evangelical votes that Ronald Reagan did. And what's funny is that Ronald Reagan was not the stand-up guy you thought he was, okay? I know he's a legend for many conservative right-wing people, for Republicans. Again, for David Tomsic, he was not. He was not the person we thought he was. He was not the stout Christian people thought he was. In fact, it says here that so many of the Christians closed their eyes to the aspects of his character: twice married, alienated from his children, almost never attended church, that flew counter to the evangelical way of life, the belief, but they didn't care because he was a person that kind of used that faith, that hating communism and those things that make right-wing people, and he used it, and he gained two terms with it. We basically give him credit for the Berlin Wall coming down. I can tell you from the research I did, that was only very, very minutely true. There was a lot of reasons it came down at that time. There were some deals made that we reneged on later with Russia, so I wouldn't be proud of that. And again, people get mad when I say that. I'm going to digress. Again, David Tomsic comes on the Tomsic Analysis to tell you the truth, not rumors or innuendo or ideology beliefs or any of this crap everybody else wants to give you. Okay? That means some people aren't going to like me. Some friends of mine aren't going to like me. Some Christian friends of mine aren't going to like me. But guaranteed, right now, the things I've told you are going to pan out true. And it has since I came on the air. Now, you can believe me or you don't. You can go somewhere else and you can still listen to people repeat what somebody else said 50 times and never looked it up or researched it or had a clue as to how to basically to capture that in reality in their mind. They don't. They just believe what they hear because it fits their narrative, fits what everybody else is saying. Don't go that route. I'm warning you, don't. That's why we're in the mess we're in now. At any rate, I digressed. This also started later on with Jerry Falwell. I don't know if you remember him. He had the church and he was the moral majority. That was the cliche he had. And of course they were right-wing people and they were against abortion and other stances that Christians would take that were more evangelical in nature. Again, I go on record as saying I am anti-abortion. It doesn't mean I don't want to save a mother's life if it was necessary. I think everybody should consider what happens with rape and incest. I think all these things have to be in play. I'm not going to just shut the whole thing down in that sense. If you get mad at me about that, I'm sorry. But if a mother is dying and you have to choose, there should be a choice there. The government should not make that choice for you. On the other hand, you shouldn't be having abortions up until someone's 20. I mean, this is another crazy thing the Democrats do. But in my first video, if you go back on the part 1 of this, I'll explain why that's not the government's problem, so to speak. And again, I'm going to digress on that, so I'm not going down that rabbit hole because I've explained it in part 1. Okay, so there's a lot of rhetoric. Trump himself said, we're going to protect the Christian church. No, we're going to protect Christianity. I don't need him to protect Christianity. Believe me, Jesus Christ is bigger and great enough to protect Christianity. In the Bible, we talk about who's left at the end, the remnant. And if God didn't shorten the days, even they would be deceived. So understand that I don't need anybody to try to defend my faith. It's up to me through the power of the Holy Spirit as a Christian. This is how it works. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. You Catholics know this, you Presbyterians know this, you Protestants all know this. It's the way it works. So I don't need somebody who's borderline to defend anything. It's us in the Christian realm, the born-again Christians, those who are Christians. And you don't even have to use the term born again, although that's a biblical term that Jimmy Carter used. And it was funny because, and I'm digressing here, nobody knew what that meant at that time. Yes, it is biblical. It's not specially fancy name. It's nothing new crazy doctrines of anything. It's what Jesus talked about and explaining how it works. The spiritual transformation when you accept Him. I did digress. Okay, so why do evangelical Christians play a key part in Republican coalition? Okay, now you say there are other minorities in here, yes, but overwhelmingly it's white Christians. And there is something to this that kind of frightens me in a way. And I'm going to digress again before I get into this. And I've talked about this on other videos, so please people, if you're new here, go to my other videos, watch them. Please join our gang here, my family. I love all the people who watch here. People are good people, and I love you. Please be a part of who we are. We want you, we need you. We want a part of you want to be a part of something special right here on the Tomsic Analysis. That's because truth matters. Stay here. Okay, so we have allowed ourselves to create an America that was beyond who it really was. We created this belief system of America. And of course people on the right use this a lot. Donald Trump has used it. We're going to be great again. And once again, I'm not picking on just Donald Trump. Kamala Harris is not part of this conversation because she's not dealing with evangelicals. They're not supporting her, okay? I'm talking about the people that are legitimately believing, fireworks and, we're the greatest. Don't mess with us and all these things that right-wingers portray. Okay, where do I stand? And I'm going to tell you. As a Christian, I stand that Jesus doesn't have his own political party here. He's not a Republican. He's not a Democrat. In fact, and I mentioned this in part 1, when his disciples were hoping for him to help them overthrow Rome and bring this new messianic government into play, he did not. And he told them, listen, show me a coin. And I've said this and I'll say it again. Sometimes repetition's good. So Jesus said, whose likeness is on the coin? And they said, Caesar's. What did he say? Well, render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, and unto God's what is God's. So he was telling them, and I shouldn't have to explain this, but right there he shut it all down. Everything that everybody thinks today was shut down. We're not in the politics business. You know, in the old days, in the Old Testament, there was kings and there was sacrifices, and it was a whole different world. When Jesus came, he changed all that. That all passed away. Now, the Old Testament's great for learning about history, edification. There are prophetic messages that about the coming of Jesus in the future. There's a lot, but there's a lot of things that are dead. It's no longer relevant. We don't have kings anymore. We're going to place a king in, and he can fix things. See, kings can do whatever they want. If they didn't like people, they can have them killed. If they don't like something else, they can change it. Here in the United States, our government is a republic. We are a republic. So we're not going to have somebody come in and just start saying, well, I'm going to do that, I'm going to change that. There's a system in place. What it seems like is evangelicals, that these Christian nationalists want a dictator. Yes, don't get mad at me, because see, for them to get what they want would take dictatorial powers. You see, just writing executive orders or saying things and giving orders, that doesn't work that way. Okay? And we have to learn to play nice, and we don't. Now we're just demanding. See, we have somebody like a Donald Trump, and there's many others just like him, that'll get up there and say, and I'm going to read a few of the things that people have said. They're going to tell us how it's going to be. You're going to do what I want. You're going to do what we want. No more of this and no more of that. Let me give you a tip. Everybody that has a problem with the wrongs people do today, and I'm not saying murder or I'm saying the wrongs that Christians think they do today. You can pick and choose what they are, LGBTQ. You can pick anything. Executive orders and laws won't fix that if you think it needs fixed. Okay, pick any topic, and I'm not here to support one or the other. I'm not. In fact, this is just an example. So don't get mad at me about that either. You can't fix prayer in the schools because, you see, that all starts in the Christian home. Abortions or not start in the Christian home. Bring up your child in the way he should go. That's biblical. It's in Proverbs. You see, but we failed. Remember the 60s? I vaguely remember hippies and drugs and Woodstock and free sex and the counterculture, anti-war protests. All these things came. Now, where did these people come from? Who gave them the ideas that they have? Those communists came in. Well, okay, here we go. See, it's always somebody else. Well, you got to blame the Christian church in America. You got to blame the fathers and mothers of these children. How did you bring up your child? How did you do it? How did they go from what you were they basically the foundation of Christian values as a parent, and your kids are at Woodstock? You don't have an answer, do you? Can't blame the government all the time. I'm tired of blaming the government. I have enough to blame the government for, but it's the legitimate things to blame them. I'm not going to blame them for things that was my fault or my parents' fault. And you see, we've allowed that into the church. And now the church is trying to make up for the mistakes they made, and they're still making them because there's still very few young people in most churches today. Okay? So we're still trying to make up for it, and we get our hammer. We're going to pound you. We're going to pound somebody. See, we can't pound our children or our grandchildren. We can't do that because they're our kids. So we got to find somebody, Kamala Harris, other idiots that are in the government, the clown show that is in the government, that you all elected. The consensus has to be the consensus. And the Bible pretty much tells us, and I would expect it would kind of lead into me saying this, that we knew that society was going to change and pull away from God. Jesus himself said that. No amount of dictators or demanding presidents going to bring it all back and fix it's going to work. If you think so, God help you. You'll get what you want, all right. Be careful what you wish for. This is from an Atlantic article, magazine. The gap between the Republican and Democratic parties has grown in Congress, and the share of Americans who interact with people from the opposing party has plummeted. There's no interaction between them. Studies tell us Democrats and Republicans both say that the other party's members are hypocritical, selfish, and closed-minded, and they're unwilling to socialize across party lines. Now, I've said this on this channel 5 or 6 or 7 times. Here's the 8th time, if that's what it is. We have never been this divided in our country. The Reconstruction period after the Civil War was nasty. We are there now. Okay, we are there. Many Americans read news or get information only from sources that align with their political beliefs. Evangelicals, Democrats, left-wing people, which exacerbates fundamental disagreements, not just about politics, but about basic facts. I can tell you, and I'm not going to try to offend anybody, I know many friends that post stuff on Facebook about what's happening, whether it's politics, global events, economics. I don't know where they got it. I can probably backfill it, but they were wrong. Completely wrong. Because, you see, they heard it from somebody else. Their sources, their friends, people that think like them, people on YouTube that think like them, Fox News that thinks like them. Newsmax. You see, you're on the Thompson Analysis channel. It's because of this that I got on the air. I work hard to find facts, and it is hard sometimes, but once you know where to look, and it took me about 12 years to narrow down all the places around the world that I can get good information, and all the places around the world that I can verify that information separately and come to you with it. And some of it's just common sense that no one seems to have, because they're so ideologically bound to their belief system. So-called effective polarization. Okay, so effective polarization, in which citizens are more motivated by who they oppose than who they support, has increased more dramatically in America than in any other democracy. Hatred, specifically hatred, of the other party increasingly defines our politics. Us versus them. Bad guys. How about this? North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson spoke at a church. Some folks need killing. It's a matter of necessity, Robinson, the current Republican nominee for governor, said in front of church patrons at Lake Church in White Lake, North Carolina. During his address, we now find ourselves struggling for people of evil intent, per the New Republic. The politician concluded to refer and compare the supposed enemies to Nazis in World War II. Pastor labeled Christian Democrats as demons and baby butchers. Earlier this month, Pastor Locke blasted Christians who were for the Democratic Party, saying, "You cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. I do not care how mad that makes you." Newsweek reported, the controversial pastor added, "They are God-denying demons that butcher babies and hate this nation." Pastor Jack Hibbs of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, California, took to social media this week to implore Christians not to vote for Democrats in November, calling the Democratic Party a death cult. Wow, these are Christian pastors. There's another pastor that had a rant. I could not find him. I might have taken it down. And his rant was epic. And he was again a Christian, evangelical Christian, and he went back and forth screaming at his congregation that the Democrats are baby killer, murderers, butchers, and they should all die, and you should never be able to live again. And there was a whole rant for a while, and I could not find this video. Let me tell you, I was disgusted. But not every Democrat is a baby killer, murderer, blah, 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 whatever it is. This is crazy talk. This is hatred. Is this Jesus? This is the question I have for you folks watching. Is this Jesus? You're a Christian, right? What did he teach? Listen, if you read what he taught, half the things people want to do today and believe today don't fit into any of these categories that he taught. We went on our own. We went off the reservation. We're just going to hate you. We want to kill you and hate you. And those of my friends who are Christians, I want to implore you, stop the hatred. My co-host once a month, Ashley, was on last Wednesday. You can find Ashley and David, a conversation with Ashley and David. You can see her in the background here. We had a very nice conversation, and she, a Christian girl, said that, you know, the hatred is over the top with people. We're going to pray over it. We're going to, pray that these people lose and get destroyed, and we're number one, and we're going to take it all back. And, well, it doesn't belong to you anyway. Let me be honest. Many people say, well, God will install who he wants to install. This is a free choice world. The choices we have were given to us because of the other choices we made in the past. Bad choices, one after another. And this is what we're left with. So those in the right-wing ideological sector, and again, we're talking evangelical right-wing. We're not talking left-wing. That's a whole other story. I'm speaking to Christians who support the right-wing platforms of the Republican Party. Be careful what you wish for. I've read the platforms. There's some things to worry about. There's some things to say, how do we want to push this? How far do we want to push everybody away from us? How separate do we want to be? Because you're supposed to be separate. But you're also supposed to have your hand out. See, being an evangelical means you're evangelizing. That's in that word, right? Being an evangelist. Bringing the gospel to other peoples. Preaching to people who maybe don't know or don't understand. We're blowing people up all around the world. Babies are now bad guys. Blow them up. Well, how do you have a right to do that? It's against international law. But how do you have a right to do any of the things we're doing? I truly believe, and others, that this country is under a judgment. Henceforth, you get the people we have now that are running for offices. All of them. As I've mentioned before, the great trends researcher, Gerald Celente, who I respect greatly, and he has his own videos, you can find him on YouTube, Gerald Celente. He makes me laugh when he says they're all sociopaths and psychopaths. Yes. Meanwhile, we're going to support them anyway. We don't care. We're just going to support people on both sides that shouldn't be there, that have their own agenda, that have been making millions of dollars off of us, putting in their pocket through war, through really poorly written budgets. Go down the list of things that we've done in this country. So those of you who think that's going to be fixed by one person, they're not. We're going to still print money no matter who's elected. Go deeper and deeper into debt. Inflation's not going to go away. You're funny if you think that's going to be fixed. War. I can guarantee you we're going to be in war, whoever's president. It's either one or the other. Maybe, if we're unlucky, it could be both. And of course, we are at war with China. Neither of these presidents are going to prevent that. Because you see, the permanent state, the people that actually run the government, and I have done a video on this, Trump or Harris, doesn't really matter, go watch that one. We find out that it really doesn't matter because they don't have a lot of choices in some of these things. They may think they do, but they don't. So the process that I went through to get to this video is to say to my friends who are Christians and those who are out there that are Christians, whatever you call yourself, because there's no such thing as evangelicalism in heaven, I'm sure. There's no real party. You're either a Christian or you're not. There's no middle of the road here. You may believe more things than the other person, but if they know Jesus Christ, it's no difference. You can't just judge people. Nope, they go to a Catholic church. Did you ever hear that one? Oh, they're Catholics, they don't know anything. Really? You may not like the church, but the people in it can be God's people just like anybody else, Protestants, Presbyterians. Listen, people, we got to stop this looking down on people, this hatred for people. We're better than you. And I reach out to the evangelical community. Tone it down, to step back, to calm down. I'm sorry, my friends. Just going out there and talking trash on Kamala Harris or going out there and talking trash on Donald Trump, it doesn't work. What's in your heart's what counts. And if the truth is in your heart, you're going to go and vote your conscience and get it over with. Well, we're going to have part 3 coming up here this week. Please stay tuned for part 3. Again, if you haven't watched part 1, go back and watch it. We got a lot of great videos out there. It's a target-rich environment. A lot of stuff for you to watch on the Tomsic analysis. Again, like, subscribe, and share. It's all the time I have today. God bless you. Remember, Jesus is the true answer for everything. His plan is the perfect plan. So God bless you. See you next time right here on the Tomsic analysis. It's crazy, man.
If you enjoy our content, please like, share and subscribe to the Tomsic analysis, because truth matters.